This work is called Uncorrectional Services. And so in the top left hand corner over here, we see the words Alfin Majuro. And this is an anagram that I use. This is a word that has been muddled up. It's a bit of an Easter egg, so I won't be revealing information this time around in this painting, but it will be in a future painting where I speak about what this actually means. So to move on from there, then we'll move on to this crest, or this lion crest over here. And this is actually the crest of King Leopold II. And below that we have the words rubber, robber, which once again refers to, he's become my villain in quite a few of my works, but it refers to his role in the Congo Free State and the extraction of rubber and other natural resources from the Congo Free State under his colonial empire. Um, Below that we have the words, which is all the king's men, and this is probably quite familiar to most people, which comes from the nursery rhyme Humpty Dumpty. And this really talks about the fall of empire. Um, it refers to the fall of empire, where they speak about all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. And so there's just a theme of like a fall from power after attaining high status or achieving high goals, seeking out power, and then falling. That's really what this refers to. In the top area over here, we have the words decoy duck. Um, that refers to one of my favorite cartoons growing up as a kid of Daffy Duck. There's actually an episode which is called Decoy Duck, which came to mind when I was busy working on this painting. Below that we have the words, which is Malavida Buena Muerte, and Malavida Buena Muerte is actually just means bad life, which is Malavida, and then Buena Muerte is good death. And that's also something from a poem from one of my favorite poets, who is Miguel Pinheiro. Moving on over here, we have the words Iago, which is actually part of another word, which is painted over there that you don't see. But what is clear here is this word shook ones. And shook ones is actually a phrase invented by one of my favorite East Coast rappers called Mobb Deep, and it signifies someone who acts very tough until they actually have to deal with the reality um, of the real street life or so, and then they are shaken up, and they sort of become a coward. Um, and yeah, I just found this interesting. I was listening to the song actually as well while painting this, and I just found it interesting of how people need to put on this front of power, and then the truth actually shows through that they are afraid of something. Um, Moving on from there, we go to this line over here, which is blood and tears instead of milk and honey. It also comes from one of my favorite poems by the African American artist Gil Scott Heron. Um, yeah, it's also referenced, I think, by Kanye West in in one of his songs. But it's worth checking out Gil Scott Heron and listening to his full recital um, of this poem. Um, Moving on from this area, uh, on this character there is some text which kind of peeks out here at the bottom, and this is actually by another. This is also a poem by another poet who is Maya Angelou, and it's called Caged Bird, and it sits really sort of inside his torso here. And the poem really describes the opposing experiences between two birds. One bird is able to live in nature as it pleases, while a different sort of caged bird suffers in captivity. And so, due to this profound suffering, the cage bird sings both to cope with its circumstances and to express its own um, longing for freedom. And so we're faced with that sort of theme here again of, being caged and slavery and freedom, which comes up quite a bit. But then to give more context to this painting, the character on the left hand side here um, really represents a person who is easily influenced, and hence the word that I spoke about earlier with the term shook one. And so, and this person who is so influenced goes to seek out ways and means to sort of make a name for himself, or sort of in the circumstances of like maybe get money um, in a way that is illegal, by turning to crime. And I grew up really seeing this kind of situations with people who were older than me, and I've seen this happen to friends of mine as well. So that's really what this character represents. And usually they come from good homes, good families, but they become a product of the environment where they see gangsters and they see crime as a way out, and they see it as a form of success, and they aspire to do these things that were not taught in their homes. And so that's really what this character on the left represents. And we see, I placed this in here. I remember using some spray paint on this as well, where he's actually crying, and it's sort of like tears of gold that runs down, because it's like the reality hits um, when the consequences start showing up of following a life of crime, and then maybe entering into the correctional services, where he's then faced with the reality that he'll be serving X amount of time, and he'll become that statistic, and what people have been trying to warn him about, but he has fallen for that trap already. Um, and then on the right hand side over here, we have this character, which represents those who are in the prison system already. Um, and they would rather stay in this prison system, because for them, they've been in there so long that it's become almost a comfort to them. It's familiar to them. They live better inside prison than outside prison. And so, once again, it's this theme of power, which may not appear to the the normal civilian as a sense of power, or may not even make any sense as to why would somebody want to go back into jail, and why would they want to spend time rather there than come out and be part of society. But it's because that has become their society. So it's an observation. And I remember growing up, there were many uncles of friends that I had, or older brothers who had gone to jail, and they'd fallen um, for this life of crime, and they'd end up going in and out of jail all the time, and it was just the norm for them, really. Um, and then below that, we have this little dog here, and this dog's really it's a character that used to appear on this television commercial in the early 90s when I was growing up, and something just reminded me of him, so I placed him in there, and he's got this text that is running across him, which is saying verbal false limbs. And this is a phrase, an expression used in writing to inflate meaning, to appear longer than it should be. Um, Also, some of the words can make you sound a bit more scholarly in some instances, and so um, I suppose this is like a bit of a personal jab that I place here, especially when it comes to being a self-taught artist, um, being comfortable to talk about my work in a way that can reach the man in the street, um, not having to use, as they would call, art talk, or not being familiar with that, not having gone to art school, trying to make my work accessible to everybody. So being able to explain things like I would explain it to my grandmother, I think that's why I place this word here of verbal films for sale, you know. Um, and then finally, over here, we have a little small painting. There's all paintings within paintings, but it's the Sharpeville Six. And the Sharpeville Six were South African protesters, and they were convicted of murder. And the murder was the deputy mayor of Sharpeville. They were wrongly so accused, and they were sentenced to death. And this is quite a deep story in South African history, so I would encourage people to go and read about it. I don't want to go too much into detail because it would take up too much time, but the Sharpeville Six is very, very interesting. Also, quite a sad story as well. And then finally, we'll just go and there's an underpainting over here which comes through, um, and some of the referencing is from James Baldwin, um, and some of the others are from other sources as well. But I'm not going to go too much in detail once again with this information here because this is part of another painting, and so I will give reference to this area and this area section over here, everything that's been painted in white, in a later painting from a future body of work, and it will all make sense then. So this work is Uncorrectional Services, and this is the summary of this work. Thank you.